We've all seen those deals that just seem totally one-sided, right? Contracts that just feel wrong. But does being a bad deal automatically make it illegal? Well, it turns out there's a very specific line a contract has to cross for a court to step in. And in this explainer, we're going to find out exactly where that line is.
So here it is, our big question for today. What makes a contract so unfair that a court can actually tear it up? It's not just about getting the short end of the stick. The law has a special word for this level of unfairness: unconscionable. So let's break down what that really means.
All right, the first major idea we've got to get our heads around is unconscionable conduct. Yeah, it's one of those big legal terms that sounds a little intimidating, but the idea behind it is actually pretty straightforward. It really gets to the heart of what we think of as truly deeply unfair.
Just look at the language here. Seriously unjust, contrary to good conscience. We are not talking about a simple bad bargain or a case of buyer's remorse. For something to be unconscionable, it has to be about one party knowingly, and I mean knowingly, taking advantage of someone else's significant weakness. This is about exploitation, not just a tough negotiation.
So how do courts figure out when that line has been crossed? When does a tough deal become exploitation? Well, they look for one crucial ingredient, something the law calls a special disability. Now, this is so important to get right. When you hear the word disability here, don't think in a medical sense. In the eyes of the law, it's any condition. Could be age, illness, even a severe lack of knowledge that messes with someone's ability to protect their own interests in a deal. This idea is basically the foundation for this whole area of law.
Okay, so now we get to the litmus test. We have this definition of a special disability, but what does that actually look like in the real world? Let's dig into what counts, and maybe more importantly, what doesn't.
All right, let's turn this into a little pop quiz. Based on what we've just covered, which one of these would not be considered a special disability by a court? Take a second, think it over.
Okay, let's break this down. The courts have said that things like poverty, a lack of education, or not understanding the language of a contract, yeah, those can absolutely put someone in a position where they can't properly judge what's best for them. But then you see that last one, mere disadvantage. That's our odd one out, isn't it?
And there you have it. The correct answer is mere disadvantage. This is such a critical distinction. The law is really clear that while a lot of things can make you vulnerable, simply being in a weaker position isn't enough to get a contract thrown out.
Which leads to the obvious question, right? Why? Why does the law draw such a firm line right there? What's the real crucial difference between having a special disability and just being in a weaker bargaining position?
So here's the absolute core of it. A special disability is about someone's internal capacity. Their ability to think clearly and make good judgments is basically impaired. On the other hand, a mere disadvantage is about external things, like having less money or fewer options than the other person. You see, the law is designed to protect people whose judgment is clouded, not necessarily to save everyone who just makes a bad deal.
Okay, let's get to the takeaway. Why does this all matter so much? Because, this isn't just some abstract legal theory. It has a huge real-world impact on which contracts are enforced and which ones get tossed out. So, to wrap it all up, the law against unconscionable conduct is there to stop predators, not to save us from our own bad decisions. The focus is always on whether one person's ability to make a sound judgment was seriously impaired. And this creates this really important balance, right? It protects the truly vulnerable, but it also upholds the freedom for the rest of us to enter into agreements as we see fit.
And all this leaves us with one last, really challenging question to chew on. How do we protect the most vulnerable people in society without accidentally taking away their power to make their own choices? It's this incredibly delicate dance between fairness and personal freedom. Something to think about. Thanks for joining us for this explainer.